Hello and welcome. Welcome to Wednesday night meditation and Dharma talk. If you're with me live, let me know if you can hear me. We had some technical problems last week and I'm using different equipment. So hopefully the sound is okay. And we'll give it just a minute for anybody else to come on and for anyone else to join us in the room. We're cozy and comfy right now here in our studio in Arlington, Virginia. Welcome, welcome. You doing good?
Yeah.
Good.
Better than last week.
Me too. Hello, Christiane. Hi, Sandra. Welcome, everybody. Glad you're here. All right, so I think my sound is A-okay tonight. Okay. Well, let's get started with just some basic mindfulness just to get centered. So, step one, get comfortable. Feel whatever it is that's supporting you and allow that support to rise up and hold you. Step two, find your breath. Feel its vibrant, powerful presence, just by nature of recognition. The simple act of noticing the breath is when it comes alive, is when its potent life force makes itself known to your whole system. So take some time to welcome that acknowledgement, to use that welcoming acknowledgement to amplify the presence of your breath. And as you feel the comforting presence beneath you and you welcome in the recognition of your breath, step one and step two, the only remaining step is to do it again when you have noticed yourself drifting away. That's it. So get comfortable, notice your breath, and then begin again when the conditions require it of you. And the beauty in that simplicity is that we have a lifetime opportunity, a lifetime's worth of opportunities to practice this, to find ways in whatever moment finds us and whatever moments we find, to feel some support from the ground, to welcome the breath from all around us, and then to use the power of conscious mind to begin again when we need to. Sometimes the conditions require us to change the physical support, our positioning, and sometimes the experience or the relationship to the breath requires a bit more effort. And sometimes the journey back to beginning again takes longer. And that's just the truth of being a human being. Just a few more minutes here in the simplicity of breath recognition, of connecting to steady ground underneath. And watching as we are still in the beginning stages of an evening's worth of practice and experience, watching the relative distance and time it takes to come back and come back and come back without any judgment, without an evaluative frame of mind. Just notice. Let's take 3 more steady breaths. And on the last inhale, lengthen just a tad more. And on the exhale, lengthen another tad more. And then just gently wake up your body a little bit, wriggle, stretch, perhaps change position, and we'll have a little bit of chat. So, if you were a salmon, you would spend most of your life out at sea, in the open water, doing whatever is done as a fish. And when the time would approach to reproduce, you would, as a salmon, find your way back to a freshwater source. And odds are that it would be the same freshwater source, the river or the stream, where you were originally hatched. So you would be finding your way home. And because you're going in the direction from out at sea back into a freshwater stream, this would be an uphill journey, right? This would be like walking to school uphill in the snow both ways, barefoot without a coat. It would be arduous. It is arduous. And so, because they're going against the flow of life. And the cool thing about salmon finding their way back to their natal stream is that they do it. We're not even sure how they do it. I was reading on the internet about this today. One theory is that they use geomagnetic cues. So there's some like magnetic pull back to the same place, or chemical cues, or olfactory cues that they can sniff their way home to the place where they were first hatched. They have to swim upriver. They have to jump over white water. They have to jump over obstacles. They can, a salmon, however big a healthy adult salmon is, not that big, they can jump 12 feet high to scale these tall buildings in a single bound. And it's counterintuitive, that something in nature would have to go against the flow of things to find a place where it would be safe to reproduce. When they get there to their natal stream, the female salmon use their tail to swish out a shallow bed at the bottom of the river. And this is where they lay their eggs. And what they're swishing out is the gravel, the stones, the tiny rocks. And they're letting the downstream flow take away the detritus of the place where they're clearing out for their nest. So all of that stuff is swept away. And then they lay their eggs, and then the male salmon come and fertilize the eggs. And then the female salmon swish around again to cover it back up until it's time to hatch. Now, one key, really interesting point, yes, Melissa, salmon are awesome. I know, right? Nature is awesome. One really interesting tidbit that I learned when I was reading about this. And by the way, this came up naturally in class yesterday, right, Tom? We were talking about this notion of going against the grain. Anyway, the interesting thing that I found is that when they're choosing the place where they're going to sweep out a little nest, they don't choose the areas at the edges of the stream. They don't choose the shallow banks. Why? Because there's not enough force of the downstream flow to take away what needs to be taken away. So there's an intuitive, natural sense to know that we need to tap in to these forces of flow of nature that presumably we have prevailed against, but yet we still need. So we're going this way, the natural flow is going that way, and this is what keeps the cycle of life in play. And it's the same thing with us. Gravity is going this way, but we have to rise up against it. And that takes some force, that takes some might, that takes some strength. In yoga philosophy, in the enumerated obstacles that stand between us and a quiet, centered, unified mind state, the last one that's listed of the 9 that include illness and apathy and doubt and laziness and a sense that we're not making any progress. The very last one that's enumerated, anavashtit avatni, it means slippage. It means like you're walking along and then whoop, down. You get back up, walk along some more, whoop, ground gets pulled under, what's that phrase? The rug gets pulled out from under you, or you haven't been paying attention and you lose your footing, or a storm comes along, or a pandemic comes along, whoop, everything's different in a flash. But the thing is, our journey is so much more frequently defined by those moments of slippage than it is in the quiet moments. It's the times when we have a sense of regressing or circling back or learning and relearning a lesson where we really grow and where we mark the moments of progress and evolution and spiritual awakening. So we meet a moment that has shifted the ground underneath us, and we say, this again? I've got to do this. I've got to learn this lesson again. The lesson is different for all of us, but the fact of learning and relearning is the same. It's human nature. And so if you take the river analogy and you think, well, at a glance, a river that is clear of any obstructions, with no rocks, no trees, and no other objects, it doesn't look like it's moving. It's almost meek. It's quiet. It's, if you've ever looked like at a glassy lake, it doesn't look like much is happening. So there's not immediate sensory or tactile evidence of power. And when we're coasting along, we also are not too keenly aware of our power, of our strength, until we have to be. If you're looking at the calm river and you almost think, well, is it really moving? Is that river even alive? But drop a few big boulders down and all of a sudden you've got some whitewater rapids going. The river didn't change, but the obstructions in it did. You build a dam And all of a sudden, you've got enough power to electrify a whole city. So our journey on the road to an awakened state of consciousness depends on those moments of hardship so we can learn the magnitude of our own strength. And Melissa's chatting here. Thank you. Amen. Adapting is a part of that slipping, growing, and learning. That's it. I don't believe in coincidences, so I'll just say that it was meant to be, that I was driving along this afternoon thinking about what I was going to say on this talk, and I was listening to Sirius XM radio, The Bridge, which is 70s mellow rock, and Simon and Garfunkel came on and reminded me that the nearer your destination, the more you're sliding away. So what I want to invite you to do now for our next short little practice is to bring to mind a person, and it can be a famous person, or it can be somebody you know casually, somebody you know closely, a loved one, a friend, somebody who in your mind embodies the quality of strength or power. Just give it a moment. Can you think of a person who's like, yes, I want them on my stranded desert island team? Yeah? So hopefully you've thought of somebody in Sandra's words in the chat, who can rise like the salmon, who can jump as high as needed to get to the place where we need to be. Okay, so maybe those qualities of strength show up in ways that look like confidence or like steadfastness or discipline. Maybe they embody loyalty or simple, consistent honesty, or just an easy presence, which is its own form of strength, like the glassy river without obstructions. So if you can think of this person, I will wager a healthy sum that you can relatively quickly, trace back to something you know about their lives, which includes a significant moment of hardship, where that strength was forged on a crucible that was raging with fire. If you can't think of that, think of somebody else and you will be able to. And the truth is, can you think of anybody who hasn't had some hardship through which they moved and came out the other end stronger? And I want to make sure that I'm being clear that I don't see hardship. I would never term it as like, oh, it's a gift, and things happen for a reason. I mean, I to some extent, yes, I believe that, but I want to honor the hardships that are truly so much bigger and broader and deeper and historically significant for so many people. And those are the people for whom we need to be doubly strong. Right. So as an invitation to a little thought experiment, little bit of imagery here, can you sit your spirit next to the spirit of this person? You can picture yourself with them on a cloud or on a park bench or on a city bus, whatever placement resonates for you. And can you spiritually or metaphorically hold their hand? Can you ride the rapids with them? And maybe those rapids are through their times of hardship, or maybe they're through yours. Now, if this triggers something that doesn't feel safe for you, touch the floor, take a breath, put the imagery to the side, look around your own physical space, and make sure that you can recognize its safety. And if it does feel safe to sit with this person in spirit and ride some rapids, if the raft gets lifted, if it finds air, inhale with it, and then exhale as a way of parachuting gently back down and continuing on. Maybe you can trace your mind back to one of your own trials and imagine that their strength is sitting with you too. Just take some time with that, however it resonates. And if it doesn't resonate, then just simply take some more time with your own patterning of breath. Take a few more breaths here. And then return your awareness back to your immediate surroundings. So frequently in those trials, in those times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me. No, that's a different talk. That's a different 70s mellow rock. In those times of trouble, often the sense is that time slows down. And I'm thinking of like a pitcher on a baseball field, diamond mound, and they do all these like pre-pitch rituals, like and then tip the hat and wipe like whatever they do, they've all got their own. And then there's the wind up and it's like that stuff takes more time than the actual pitch itself, which flies with such velocity that if you blink, you miss it. That's what this reminds me of. It's like almost like, well, to pitch in professional baseball, the pulling back, the setting up of it is more important than what is let fly from the hand. And this imagery of almost like slipping back to gain the traction, to build up the force, to harness the power of the river, to then take us forward into the next play, into the next inning, into the next lesson, the next trial. And this is a consistent thing in so many of the world's major religious traditions and mythologies. In Hindu mythology, the god Indra, who is responsible for all of the order, for maintaining the order in the universe, he is known for throwing trials and storms and hardships at critical junctures in order to waylay the rishis, the seers, the wise ones, so that the status quo is preserved just long enough so that we mere mortals know the difference between being on the path and having arrived. Because if we think we've arrived too soon, it's not going to go well. We need to know what it feels like to be on the path. And so these trials that are provided to us, they slow us down. And in this worldview, it's on purpose. You know, all of the, I can't speak to all of the, but many of these religious traditions and follow this pattern. The archetype of the hero stories, same thing. A purposeful placement of a big boulder in our path to test our strength. For Jesus, it was Satan, right? For Odysseus, oh man, it was a whole list of things. The lotus eaters, the sirens calling to him. He had to stuff his ears. The Cyclops, he had to figure out a way to trick the Cyclops into moving the boulder to let them out of the cave that he had trapped them in. But what was his name? Does anybody remember his? Anyway, Poseidon throwing down the storms on the seas, on the high seas, because Odysseus it wasn't going to be easy for him to find his way home. You know, our friend Dorothy, the Wicked Witch of the West, she was there for a reason. And so were the poppies in the field and the flying monkeys, all of it there, so that our hero, our own hearts and minds, can tap into our given strength. And the Buddha had Mara, the demon god who tempted him. The night before Buddha's enlightenment, Mara threw everything he could in the Buddha's path, every ounce of temptation and lust and greed and anger and doubt. And the Buddha would have none of it. But the interesting thing is that the Buddha's interactions with Mara, the demon god, most of them happened after he was enlightened. Mara made frequent visits to Buddha to see if he could trigger him a little bit, tweak him here and there, pull him off the path. And instead of being tricked in that way, instead of being stopped by the boulders in the flow of an awakened life, the Buddha instead, he put out a picnic on those rocks. He invited Mara to tea and said, "Sit with me. I see you. I see you. I know that you are a part of me. I know that anger and lust and greed and frustration and grief and fear are part of me, are part of what it means to be alive. And placed in our path, they will harness the force of our own inner strength to whip up the water and have it have its way more fully. And we don't want to see those things. Tara Brach refers to our tendency to be a fair-weathered friend. Because we just want smooth sailing. And so we deflect or ignore or project onto others. We're champion boulder throwers. I don't want this here. Here, I'm going to put it in your way. And that doesn't work either. So make the tea, see the demons, have the cry, watch the anger flame out. That's who we are. And also who we are is peaceful, beautiful, gloriously compassionate beings. This is Rumi. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. I want to come back to the salmon and their homing instincts. We can't know ourselves fully unless we're willing to know all the parts, the good, the bad, the ugly. So we have to feel all the pain. We have to encounter all of that rubble, all of that gravel in the stream. We have to stir up the detritus. I used to say detritus when I read the word, and I like it better that way, but I'll say it correctly, the detritus, the stuff that is left behind in the wake of being alive. And so we have to be like the salmon. After we've cleared our hurdles, it's not over. We have to get our tails swishying around, stirring up that stuff so that the force of stream, and here I'm likening that force of stream to the power of conscious awareness to take it down the river. So we've got to nudgel in there and make our nest. In some ways, we have to sink so that we can swim. So another 10 minutes or so to make a nest of consciousness for yourself and to root down, sit with what's here, and notice what gets stirred up when you swish your metaphorical consciousness of a tail. And let your breath be the force of the mighty flow of the river that carries it away and leaves you safe and held and ready to create the new life that's ahead of all of us each day, each moment. We can recognize and accept that some of what gets stirred up is not ready to float down the river, not ready to be carried away. It hasn't done its work yet with us. So let it stay. Let it be. Remember that the moment you notice that your mind has drifted away is the moment that you have the chance to begin again. It is the moment of presence. Notice the presence of sensation in your body and allow it to exist alongside the breath. Let them merge in awareness so that you can carry the sensation without necessarily having to react to it. And likewise with thoughts that arise. Sit the breath next to those thoughts. Let them arrive and depart and arrive again together. And then gather up your awareness and deepen your next breath. Enthusiastically release it back out. And gather up your senses back into the moment. And I thank you all for joining me online live, and greetings to those of you who are watching this later. Thank you so much to those of you in the room. Be well, everybody.